Welcome, guys, to the daily analysis for March 27th. At the start of this week, I had said that it would be a very crucial week because this is the week we'll find out if QQQ closes below the 50-week moving average or above. If it closes below, that opens up the door for a much deeper panic sell off. If it is able to hold above, we can still say this has been correction through time. All right. Obviously, that decision has come to the final day. This week obviously has been wild. We have just had a lot of headline news for the last few weeks, so the market is starting to become numb to them. But in the last 2 or 3 days, people are starting to freak out, saying that one should have seen the correction or it's gonna get much worse. But if you look at in the overall context of things, we haven't really gone anywhere for 6 months. All right, the last 2 days of selling doesn't change that. So today is the day we'll find out if the door to the bigger sell off is open or if correction through time has occurred and things can calm down now. So it's needless to say, this is a very important day. If you want me to show an example of what I mean by open to a much bigger sell off, obviously last year is one example of that. We went below the 50-week moving average in 2022, which led to a bear market, but that's a different story. COVID correction, 2018 correction, and more importantly, the 2015 correction, which ended with a week below the 50 MA and then a massive gap lower. So this is what I mean by opening us to a much bigger sell-off. Until 50-week moving average, things are usually sideways. All right, you might have one or two red days, but then those get bought up and we see a lot of chop similar to what we have seen so far in the last 5 months. Now, things might not happen in a way where you get a sell-off that gets bought up. If we close below this, it can be just continuous selling. So that's obviously a dangerous place to be, and we'll have our decision today. So needless to say that the close of today is going to be of utmost importance, and it's better to wait until the close to make strong biases. All right. What happens is going to be discussed further in the next weekly watch list, but that's the overall context. We don't really have any major financial news. It's all going to be the war news, the Trump related drama. So that's the situation on the larger time frames. What does that look like on the daily charts? On the daily charts, we finally broke below 576 yesterday. If we don't recapture 576 before close, things already get nasty. What about the hourly charts? Hourly charts yesterday. Yesterday, we had said that our neutral territory was this area between 586 to 592. All right, that was a consolidation area of Wednesday. Below this, we were bearish. Here, we were neutral. Above this, we would have been bullish. So we opened in the bearish territory right off the bat. Price found resistance around 583 area, sold off to 580 for a gap fill, and then the rest is history. We went to 577, 574, and now we are nearing 571 area in the pre-market. So what's the neutral territory for today? The neutral territory for today is this entire region from 576 to 583. 576 is also the area where after market closed, Trump had an announcement, price bounced and then rejected there. That's going to be a major level. Only above this are the bulls at least back to neutrality, or the market is back to neutrality. Below this, bearish for the day. What will be the levels to the downside? We have 573, 570, 567, and so on, like $3 ranges. Do we have some gaps to fill back in the day? I think we filled one of the gaps yesterday while we were selling off. There's some major gap down here. It just depends on how much the volatility would be. All right, let's try and look at this context in the context of the trend structure. So I'm going to invert the chart just to make it easier for most people to see. Broke out of this base box last Wednesday. All right, came back, gapped up on Monday with the Trump news. This was the consolidation, and then we broke below this hourly 50 MA box yesterday. So I think the neutral territory is clear for everyone to see. So I'm going to remove that and let's just look at the structure itself. So this was your hourly 50 MA box that was created with the bounce drama. Yesterday in the pre-market, I had said, guys, this is the must-hold area. If we break below that, then the bulls are about to get screwed, even though I put it a little less gently, and the bulls got screwed. What happens now after this kind of a breakout? First of all, from a base box, We already had the first leg lower. We had the 50 HMA box. This is likely the last leg before we have a much bigger squeeze, but that's the next thing I'm going to discuss. Let me finish this part. But from this hourly 50 MA box that broke down yesterday, what usually happens? We already had our first lower low. You'll probably bounce at some point today, could be this morning, to make a lower high, and that can be a strong squeeze. All right, so don't underestimate it. Don't try and short it right away. We can have a strong squeeze that will make a lower high, and then we'll go for one more leg lower in order to break people's spirits. All right, so that's likely going to be the structure of today. After that second leg lower, that's when this downtrend that started on March 18th is likely going to be over, and we have the potential for a much bigger squeeze. Now, it would be the best thing if that squeeze happens within the day so we can close above the 50-week moving average, because if it does not happen within the day and we don't close above the 50-week moving average, then that squeeze, if it happens next week, is likely going to be used to just unload more positions by the big players. All right, so that's the overall context for today, as well as the context of a bounce in the overall scheme of things. I hope that structure and everything here for QQQ is clear. So let's come to the context. Why do I talk about the squeeze? Well, first things first, VIX has been pretty chill in the higher 20s, low 30s for the whole month now. Okay, even in February, it was staying in the 20s. And all of March has been higher 20s and 30s. VIX has stayed, the implied volatility has stayed very high, even though the realized volatility in SPY and QQQ has been relatively low. Usually extended periods of such high implied volatility, and we have had a lot of bad news come straight up every single day, but the markets haven't realized that volatility yet. When you have this for a long period of time, market participants stop hedging as strongly. So usually after spending so much time up here, you guys can see even this week with the new lows, VIX did not make new highs. So usually after such extended periods of strong hedging, market participants take it a bit easy and usually let VIX go. What that leads to is a squeeze in the markets. And after that is when the most dangerous conditions appear. So if you guys remember last year before the tariff news, we had such a similar dump in VIX, and then we had the second leg up. We have spent so much time here with the realized volatility much lower than implied volatility that we are likely to have some form of dump on the VIX. That's when the market would be at the most risk. So if that squeeze comes today, great. We can hold up a 50-week moving average. Maybe VIX just dies after. If that squeeze comes next week below the 50-week moving average, then there's a risk that that squeeze will be used to unload more. All right. And that's something to keep in mind. All right. Let's go back to hourly levels now that we have discussed context in extreme detail, and the rest will be discussed over the weekend. So SPY neutral territory is pretty straightforward. It's almost similar to QQQ. We are at monthly levels here in SPY. So from 654 area until here around, we had 645 would be the major level. Yeah, so 645. Below 645, we can go to 642 and 639. This is neutral territory. Above 654, the bulls can finally do something. So those are your levels for SPY. What about SOX? SOX has been a trooper all the way until yesterday. Yesterday, right off the bat, it broke below 337, and that was sign for weakness. Went to 332, tried to hold there for a bit, and then towards the end of the day, broke that down too. Next level of importance was around 327, and it's looking to gap below that today. So below 327, we have 322 and 317. If it recaptures 327 this morning, then we can bounce back to 332 area. All right, let's do futures. So for futures, I had mentioned the whole week, this area 223 was going to be crucial. That broke yesterday, and the rest is history. We broke down. So again, I'm going to invert it. The same 50 MA box, similar to what we had on QQQ hourly, broke it down yesterday, moved lower. And you guys can see we are doing a second lower low right now. Once this trend on the 4-hour charts is over, we can expect a much bigger squeeze. Ideally, that squeeze is today. Otherwise, things get nasty. Obviously, below 612, 473 is next. After that, we have 341 to 289. On the upside, 847 is a resistance. And then we have 082 to 047. What about ES inverted chart? ES is yet to break down. It hasn't broken down yet. So as long as it doesn't close a 4-hour candle below 6484, bulls can recover quick. If it does close a 4-hour candle below this, then we'll have two legs of this, which means we probably go lower next week as well, before the squeeze. Again, very tricky situation to be in today. 6534 and then 6574 to 84 are your levels on the other side. So that's the situation in ES. I guess we have already discussed almost everything of importance. Gold is finally chilling a bit. Yesterday I had mentioned I would be bearish on gold, and the entry was mentioned around here, 4. We had mentioned from here till here, right? 4360 from 4420 area, or it might have been 4440. I'm not exactly sure, but we had mentioned this bearish trade that played out. What about today? Well, we are finally starting some consolidation in gold. We had mentioned that reaction at the 9MA. Now we are at support area. I would probably not suggest playing gold today. If you are going to if you are going to play it, long above 4460 is valid. Otherwise, just take it easy today. Guys, that's it for the daily analysis. I went into a lot of context for obvious reasons. I hope that helped. We can discuss more in the weekly watch list. Good luck today. Let's see what we have in store for us. Peace out.